You're watching RaceSpotTV. Great to have you. This is the season finale of 60 Plus Racing Adventures Super Formula League, and this is the Temple of Speed Monza. It's going to be super high speed. It's going to be 2 races, and we are going to crown a champion. To bring it all to you here live on RaceSpotTV, I'm David Haynes with Ewan O'Leary, Hugo Lewis in the production with all the replays, graphics, and everything we're going to see. Ewan, it looks like a simply beautiful day for our 60 plus drivers to go Super Formula Lights racing.
Yeah, it certainly does. Looks absolutely fantastic out there on the circuit, but it doesn't matter the weather. The racing around this circuit in these cars, I think anyway, is always fantastic. We've come off the back of Mount Panorama last week. The last time we were broadcasting, though, was Road America, which was exactly the midway point of the season. Since then, it's been Roberto Catalano's season, really. He's been gently pulling away from the rest of the field by some margin, as you can see here with the championship standings.
It's just about all mathematically sewn up, but as we head to Roberto Catalano's home nation of Italy, he'll be looking to put a cap on this season of 60 plus racing adventures. Season 35, Catalano's got 467 points to Todd Scholl's 385, Russ Addy 361, Greg Garris, Mike McCormick, Paul Stump, Franz Josef Sturm, Ulf Olsen, Barry Hills and Douglas Beasley are our top 10 as we head into the final round of this season. 60 plus racing adventures, of course, is for drivers 60 years of age or over, and this Super Formula Light League is the longest running of the now multiple divisions of 60 plus, spanning NASCAR, stock cars, GT3s, touring cars. This is where it all began and has a long history.
Yeah, absolutely. Season 35, this one in 2025. Of course, another season to come before the end of 2025 with the final iRacing season just around the corner. Not too far away. So yeah, another chapter in the history of this championship to come, I am sure. As Todd Scholl that we ride on board with at the moment into the final turn, and what I've got to say, a fantastic livery harping back to 2009 and Formula One and all of that. And it's a nice colour, I think, as he makes his way over the line. For the moment, where's he going to get to? They've obviously been battling with Catalano all season long. In fact, he's just going to start a lap, of course, because very early on in this session. 7.5 minutes still to go, and it's you do forget sometimes, actually, quite a long way around here, especially for these slightly lower powered cars compared to some of the others that go around here on a year-by-year basis.
Well, the thing about a circuit where you spend such an immense amount of time at full throttle is that the cars that are fast in a straight line get around here pretty quickly, and others, well, you spend a lot of time sitting at full throttle all the way up to 6th gear for Todd Scholl. As he approaches the second of the chicanes, got to be careful exactly how much curb you take, particularly in these very low-sitting single-seaters. We've seen them be disturbed by curbs very easily, and I think track limits are also relatively rigidly enforced here through the Lesmos.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly a place where you can't afford to run very wide at all before you start getting into the realms of off-track through there. The gravel that lines the circuit is generally going to be brought back onto the circuit again with the new iRacing system of bringing the gravel back onto the circuit again. That could be a bit treacherous, actually, towards the latter portion of the race if some of the guys have been off the circuit, off to the side. So, yeah, that's something to contend with maybe a little bit later on. Monza, thankfully, is one of those circuits that's kept that sort of natural enforcement of track limits, if you like, around some of the corners anyway, but you do get to the chicanes where it again is a little bit loose and can be when we run down towards turn 1 on lap 1. We'll see that, of course, in a moment as Todd Scholl completes our first lap on board, and he will go third, just ahead of Gardis Jorgensen, but it's Paul Stump who's taken the current best time.
Typical qualifying format is 10 minutes with the 2 flying laps. So we're seeing the first ones come in, and Paul Stump with the best time for the moment. Russ Addy with the no time for the moment, and he is leaping across those curbs. Peter Hallstrom's lap time comes in. For Russ Addy, he's tossing it about. And track limits, I'm starting to sense might be a little important in this qualifying.
Yeah, very much looks like it. There's not much room for error around Monza, that is for sure. Still 5 drivers without times as things stand, making up the 15 that we have in the field here today. We've had 28 drivers, by the way, scoring points at various points throughout this season. I don't think we've had 28 on the grid at any one time, but we have had lots of drivers enter in. Plenty of them, especially towards the top, have been at pretty much every round so far, although Roberto Catalano, even our championship leader, has not quite been at all the rounds so far. Some people got other things to do and etc. over the course of the week. As Rosati now brings himself towards the start-finish line as well, keeps it very much to the right-hand side, even over the white line, and will jump right up to third there if that counts, and it does. So triple one up into third place behind Catalano, who's still second.
I think Catalano's done with that. 2 laps completed. His second was not an improvement. Needed about 0.2 more to go quicker. Russ Addy still has that opportunity. Paul Stump's done. Roberto Catalano's done. Todd Scholl is done. It's everyone below your top 3 that still stands a chance of improving. Barry Hills, one of them, needs to go quicker than a 1:43.3 to move himself forward from the 3rd row on the grid.
Whereas Barry Hill's going to get to here. It's very congested here, which does bode well for the race. The 6th stream at Monza, as you might imagine, very, very important, and he will move up, actually, Barry Hills, into 3rd place. Yeah, it's one of those circuits where you can actually stay in touch with someone who's a little bit quicker than you by just getting into the slipstream, chucking in and staying close that way. And that is looking like what's going to happen, especially at the front of the field, with currently 6 drivers covered by less than 0.7 of a second.
Is Addy through the Ascari chicane. I've gotten them confused with the corner name and the driver names, etc. But he's negotiated that very tidily. Sharpest part of the chicane's actually the first of the 3 apexes. Then you're trying to position the car through the second to go flat out through the third onto the next straight towards the parabolica, where you're keeping your minimum speed through the apex up and then pointing directly to the timing line for Russ Addy as he looks for every single improvement he can get to leap from 5th to where? Remaining in 5th with just a tiny improvement, I think.
Yeah, looks like it. So 5 covered by less than half a second at the very front of the field, but Russ Addy squeezing that even closer now as we join Peter Hafström now in the 33. Currently 1.6 seconds off of the pole, bringing himself down towards the final corner at the moment. Needs to be a little bit quicker if he's going to stay with this front group, which looks like it's sort of organising itself almost at the moment. Looks like that's what we're going to see as Hafström crosses the line. 44.4 is no improvement, even if that does count. And there you go, pulls off to the side of the circuit. It's going to be 10th place at best for him. Ulf Olsen as well, 1.4 seconds off in 9th place. Going to pull into the pit lane and practice the pit lane, although we're not expecting pit stops to be required here today anyway.
So everyone who's out on track have completed their 2 flying laps. Russ Addy's going to show us again the Ascari chicane. This is the version that's got those really nasty black and yellow anti-cut curbs. Ask Alex Peroni about them. They've been replaced with a different type of anti-cut curb. Perhaps it's nicer, perhaps it's not. Parabolica, of course, by its name, not a consistent radius corner, a little tight on the entry, opens up, and these cars got so much grip that by halfway through the corner, they've got grip to spare, and Russ Addy can get back to the inside line, point directly to the line, and point directly down towards the braking zone of turn 1 as well. So a different line for these high grip, early to full throttle single-seaters versus what GT3 cars and other heavier, higher horsepower cars often do through the parabolica, where they're still scrabbling for traction all the way around the outside of the corner until the track finally straightens out. So Roberto Catalano, the championship leader, the champion-elect on his home soil, he's the only Italian on the grid today, will start from 2nd by the looks of things. Paul Stump has his measure in qualifying so far.
He does. Just over a 10th of a second, sorry. on the pole at the moment. But as I say, that does bode well for the race. Those two are going to be very evenly matched, and looks like the whole top five are going to be honest. Barry Hills here is bringing himself towards the line. He's just doing it in time. Not sure he actually has a lap still available, but he's just actually just going around anyway. He's going to be there or thereabouts as well, I would imagine. But these Super Formula Lights always, as I said at the start of the show, suit this track well, and it's going to be a good race to see, hopefully.
And so with 2 races ahead of us and the qualifying completed for race 1, this is how race 1 will set off. Paul Stump and Roberto Catalano are the front row. Barry Hills in 3rd with Todd Scholl in 4th. Russ Addy has qualified 5th ahead of Gerhardus Jorrison in 6th. Row 4 has Greg Garris and Franz Josef Sturm. Ulf Olsen in 9th. Peter Holstrom has qualified 10th. Jan-Erik Skrefsrud and Steve O'Malley 11th and 12th. Just a couple of drivers left, just one driver left with a qualifying time is Douglas Beasley, because Neil Canning has not set one, and neither has Carter Kongsfjell.
Hopefully they do actually start the race towards the back end of the field, though, and they can race their way forward over the course of the first race of the day. There are your track temperature. Goodness me, that's warm, isn't it? 111 degrees Fahrenheit. Just 10 to 1 in the afternoon in the middle of May. It's Italy, though, so it is quite warm. And I'm not sure what that is in Celsius. Maybe 40s, in the 40s Celsius-wise. So
43.9.
Yeah. There we go. Properly serious temperature, that, isn't it? But, you know, these aren't long races, 16 minutes, but, 16 laps. Certainly more than 16 minutes. But nevertheless, it's certainly someone who goes around for a spin or whatever, going to have real hot tyres to contend with for the rest of the lap or so. And that could be a problem to conjure with a little bit later on.
Yes, indeed. And as the rather pronounced branding on the tyres suggests, they are Kumo tyres. And this is our truncated formation lap behind the Porsche 911 GT3 Touring safety car. No rear wing on it. That makes it a GT3 Touring, I think. It's
maybe a little bit unusual for Super Formula Lights, but obviously we always have done in the 60 Plus Racing Adventures, already gone for a formation lap, or at least a few corners in this track anyway. It's not particularly about tyre warm-up, as you can see here, on the way down towards the final corner, because the temperatures are so high, but it's a slight short formation lap before we get this one underway, and that famous run down towards turn number 1.
So 15 cars on the grid. Swiss Paul Stump on the pole as we look to begin 16 laps from the Temple of Speed for 60 Plus Racing Adventures Super Formula Light. Pace car in, green flag ready, pace underway as your pole sitter heads down towards turn 1, a long run towards a tight and slow turn 1. Paul Stump's just got a couple of car lengths as some of them look to sit single file. Still got Russ Addy looking to the inside, trying to outbrake on this lap 1. Always a risky thing to do heading into this pinch point, and exactly that.
Yeah, Peter Hallström has got off to the side of the circuit, and he's missed the first chicane, and we have got a break in the group pretty much immediately. Hallström actually weaved out the way to avoid all of that, although he did hit the wall on the left-hand side anyway. He didn't get caught up in everything that went on there through the actual chicane itself, on the circuit itself. Instead avoided all of it, but still has damage. I said that there would be a breakaway group of 5 or 6 at the front. I didn't think it would happen at the first chicane, but that's exactly what you can see out of Monza. It's such a difficult opening lap here, and unfortunately over half the field really haven't survived.
Yeah, 4 damaged cars at Monza. We've got spaghetti and meatballs. Franz Josef Sturm, Ulf Olsen, Peter Holstrom, Jan-Erik Skrefsrud, all being displayed the mechanical black flag at the moment for various levels of damage that they're going to have to come to pit lane and get fixed. It's your top 6, though, at this slipstream-heavy racetrack. Paul Stump, 7 tenths from Roberto Catalano, who's got Barry Hills, Russ Addy, Todd Scholl, Greg Garris all following directly in his wheel tracks, getting the maximum slipstream. And the drivers have told us consistently, though, that the slipstream doesn't extend back as far off these Super Formula Light cars as it does for some others. Slipstream only gets really strong 3 or 4 tenths behind a car, Roberto Catalano is going to need to pick up the pace a little bit to stop Paul Stump getting away.
Absolutely. It's a slipstream heavy circuit, as we've talked about, and you've got to keep pace with the track guy in front of you, and you can't really battle for second too hard. Barry Hills is doing exactly that, though. Jumps to the inside and does it quite nicely. If that got drawn into a long side-by-side battle, there could have been trouble there, but Barry Hills gets through quite nicely. Catalano down to third, then Russ Addy, who's in fifth place, just in behind, queuing up behind Catalano. Addy, by the way, third place in the Drivers' Championship coming into today, not too far behind Todd Scholl, although I'm not sure he'll be able to overhaul that margin quite, especially with only one position between the two of them at the moment. Scholl and Garris, the other two around that part of the championship standings, are not too far away, but they are off the back of the group now, effectively, which is a front four.
If anything, Barry Hill's got a good leapfrog from Roberto Catalano, put himself a little bit closer to Paul Stump, and Barry Hill's clearly confident in this early stage of the race as the tyre temperature continues to grow and gain to try to close in Paul Stump. Got about half a second, and now I think he really is slipstreaming. Speeds in these cars exceeding 260 kilometers an hour when they get a good tow. Not bad for what I think is a 1.5 litre 3-cylinder.
Yeah. It's, I must say, every time I see these cars around here, they look tiny around Monza. I say this often when I see them on Grand Prix circuits, to be honest, these Super Formula lights. They do look very, very small, but maybe modern F1 cars and higher power cars have just got so massive that these just look like a normal size again. But anyway, it's a very, very wide circuit, Monza, for these machines, and we'll see whether Hills can maybe use that here to take this race lead. Paul Stump at the front of the field, but it doesn't look like for very long.
Perfectly executed from Barry Hills to get close enough to get that slipstream. Massive tow off the Parabolica or the Curva Alboreto onto the front straight and easily past Paul Stump and into the race lead. Stump now has the opportunity to feel the slipstream, though, for the first time in this race, and we'll have 4 cars for this lead group. Todd Scholl and Greg Garris just begun to drop away from this lead group. On the run to the next chicane, Paul Stump does close that gap back in again. So I think all of them, with the power of the slipstream, can afford to be patient. A replay of the front there. Whoa, lap 1. And so you've got a concertina effect and a car park at the apex of 1 and 2. And it all began initially Peter Hallstrom speared to the left.
Yeah, although he was, somewhat separate to the inside there with what was all going on. So I'm trying to work out, identify the car that actually is the initial cause of this. I guess there isn't really one, is there? It's just a real slowing down into the first corner. I think almost everybody overly cautious on the way towards turn 1 on that occasion, because the fear of the accident that actually ended up going so slowly that it sort of created one as everybody piled into the back of everybody else. It's a bit of a shame to see, especially for those further down the back of the pack, and already we've got Jan-Erik Skredsrud and a lap down, and a number of others nearly a lap down. Hallstrom nearly a minute back from these leaders after just 3 laps.
So here goes Barry Hills once again on the front straight, trying to defend his race lead from Paul Stump. Despite the power of the slipstream, starting to get a little bit of fracturing. What was a inseparable top 6 now almost looks like it could be a top 3. Russ Addy not quite staying in Catalano's slipstream, and there's a little drama. Curtis Jorrison coming back through the field. He was reversing on the apex of turn 1 on lap 1, and as he's tried to move forward, he's had a big difference of speed himself versus Neil Canning.
And Canning has to come to the pit lane as well in his mid-2000s, early 2000s Williams livery. Oh, big spin. Russ Addy, that was, I think, turning in there. It was, yeah, on turning there, just for the second chicane. Enters completely sideways, and again, that's not going to do any favours to the tyre temperatures, which are going to be sky high now. See it again here on board. Does he grab the grass, or is it just, well, not really. He just goes in a bit too quickly, and as he tries to turn in at that kind of speed, he goes for a spin, and yeah, there you go, more heat through your very warm tyres.
Yes, indeed. So Todd Scholl gets past him, but he rejoins just ahead of Greg Garris in what's now battle for 5th and 6th. You're looking at 1st and 2nd, and Stump in the aero wash on the exit of Ascari, gets super wide, kicks up that gravel, but what he does is he keeps his foot in it to follow Barry Hills for the race lead. Barry Hills looks to defend the inside, but there's still 2 car lengths heading into the Parabolica. Paul Stump now looking to cross through the aero wash to a later apex, trying to over-under Barry Hills, and this is the onboard of the closing speed, and the difference is already 4 kilometers an hour, 5 kilometers an hour as they get into 6th gear and exceed 250 k's an hour. Paul Stump had an overspeed of 9 kilometers an hour as he closed down there, got to the inside, and Stump pulls it up, gets into the first chicane, and goes back to the race lead.
Well, this is setting up really nicely for the rest of this race now. I know we're only just over a quarter of the way in now at the end of lap 4, but this is exactly what you want to see from Monza. This is what Monza racing can be like if you get it at some evenly matched drivers up towards the front who are willing to battle from lap number 1. This is what can happen. Paul Stump retaking the lead from Barry Hills, who took the lead only maybe a couple of laps ago, and Roberto Catalano on home soil just lurking in the background as well, and we're waiting really to see what he's going to do a little bit later, because surely he'll have something to say before the end of the day as well. But it's exactly what you can see from Monza. We're seeing it at the moment from this front 3. Those who haven't made a mistake so far and have got the speed, they're all here, and they're all in just about as good of a chance of winning this race as each other.
That difference of straight line speed in the slipstream, it's incredibly tactical. Paul Stump trying to carry speed again through Ascari chicane, but Barry Hills has done enough to stay with them. Roberto Catalano doing enough to stay with the both of them. We slipstream towards Curva Alboreto. Barry Hills is right underneath the rear wing of the race leader. This could go on for all 16 laps of race 1, and we could see a repeat again for race 2. Roberto Catalano needs to make sure that he doesn't get left behind. There hasn't been a great deal of defense because Stump just stays on the racing line. Barry Hills to the inside, carbon copy of some laps ago.
Exactly. And we're going to see an effective replay next lap as well. You get the feeling we might do. The key here, though, for the next 10 laps for either of them is not making a mistake. I think a mistake here, a spin or anything like what we saw from Rosati earlier on, I think would put you out of the group indefinitely. And that's your chances, at least in race 1, for winning this race completely over. I think, you know, as we see Stump just lifting off almost, it looks a little bit like they're on the way towards the second chicane. I think it's high pressure in that sense, but also in terms of actually making the overtake itself, pretty low pressure. It seems actually pretty easy to do, and it doesn't seem like you need a particularly extraordinary run out of the final corner to achieve a real big overspeed.
You've been to Switzerland, Ewan?
I have actually, yeah.
I've been for 30 minutes. I bought chocolate. And then I walked back over the bridge. Good times.
Yeah. It's almost what I did in Italy when I was in Switzerland, actually. Just popped over for a few minutes and went back again. There you go. That's Europe.
Half a second to cover our top 3. I'm 1,000 kilometres from Bathurst, Ewan, and now it's just 3/10. Roberto Catalano not going to let that top 2 leapfrog and get away. He wants to remain part of this in his home country. Seen them using first gear through the slowest of the chicanes, and how early on the front straight they get into 6th gear, and then still slipstreaming. Highest speed I've seen is 262 kilometers an hour. Catalano with the triple toe, he goes 263. He's banging the rev limiter in 6th gear, and he's got speed, and he's going to move up into 2nd place as Paul Stump goes back to 3rd. Barry Hills leads.
And what was Paul Stump slowing down quite so much for there? Does he have a slowdown that he was still serving, maybe? I'm not sure, but that's a really big gap. That's the kind of mistake I was talking about. You can't really afford to do. Catalano, though, is going to take 2 for 1 by the looks of it on the same lap. Inside into the second chicane, he's through. If he stops it in time, and he does. So that was very nicely done. Now, it probably has invited Paul Stump back into the 3, where they could have distanced him, actually, if they'd have got single file for a lap or 2. But no, Roberto Catalano takes 2 in 2 chicanes, and he now leads this race.
I think I know what happened. Paul Stump saw that the grandstands are full and that the Italian driver was trying to pass him, and he wanted to make sure he could get to the airport in one piece.
Well, I don't blame him in that sense. You see those pictures from, I can't remember what year it was, but after the Italian Grand Prix one year at Monza, everybody ran onto the circuit and stole all the car parts from a retired car.
Yep, stripped it clean like piranhas almost.
Yeah.
Wild stuff happens, and they always fill out the grandstands, and they love to support their locals.
He's almost in the right colour, isn't he, Catalano, for this part of the world? A bit too dark, but...
We go again for the race lead. Barry Hills pulls to the inside. Roberto Catalano stays on the racing line. And they break side by side into turn one. Now, I have seen in the past drivers struggle with lockups and tyre lockup in this car, but almost all of the braking zones here are in a straight line, and they seem to have it figured out.
Yeah, it does make Monza sort of a little bit less of a racing, or not a racing challenge, but racing is exactly the challenge around here. The driving challenge, really. I mean, it's not even really any elevation change either. Very flat braking zones and straight braking zones, as you say, perhaps more importantly, in these cars. And yeah, it does maybe take away something from this circuit, but that's one of the reasons why we haven't seen too much locking up so far, I'd imagine. Also because there's... I guess that one big stop down in towards turn number one as well, and she's trying to grab the apex there. Nobody quite trail braking right to the apex, I guess, and going over the limit with that. So, yeah, it's been a lack of lock-up so far from these Super Formula lights. No ABS, no assists in these open wheelers. Well, they're pretty low-powered machines. I can't imagine that any driving assists would make a massive amount of difference anyway.
The iRacing page doesn't say how many horsepower, roughly 275 on the front straight. They are using all of them and in their tallest gear. Catalano looking for that leapfrog back, not completely alongside, entering the braking zone, come from a bit far back, and there's a little bit of a lockup deep into the first apex, offline for the second. And a great run from Barry Hills will keep him within a car length, and that checks both of them up a little bit. Paul Stump remains a factor.
And Will Hills responds straight away. He's been chased over to the other side of the circuit just a little bit, to the inside at the second chicane. Catalano is still there though. Oh, contact! Contact between the two, and Hills goes off. Here goes Paul Stump, straight into the lead as Catalano and Hills take each other off the circuit down at the second chicane.
Well, there we go, side by side through that tight squeeze point really works out. Both of them paying dearly, and Paul Stump says thank you very, very much. At this point, you know something's going on. He leaves himself all that space as well. That's actually really heads up from Paul Stump. He smelt that one a mile away and made sure he could respond to take the correct line, a tight line exiting the corner, to go through into the lead of the race. Roberto Catalano's gathered it up pretty close. With all of that time lost, Russ Addy suddenly, remember, he was spun out halfway in that corner not that long ago. He's up in third. He's a second away from the lead. He's got Barry Hills with him. Todd Scholl not quite able to close all of this group back in. Some twists and turns may remain in the remaining 7 laps of this race.
It shows, doesn't it, that Russ Addy's definitely got the speed here to be with these guys at the front of the field, but just that spin has cost him so far. We'll see whether he can get back in though as Catalano and Stump battle again. Catalano on the inside line will go through into the lead of this race ahead of Paul Stump. Just hasn't quite lost enough time, I don't think, to allow Addy and Hills back in just yet, but if they continue on like this for another 6 laps, then he'll very much be joining the front two all over again.
News through the rest of the field. Neil Canning, I think, had already used his fast repair when he got contact and so he looks to be out of this race. Gerhardus Jorrison has a DQ, which is very curious to me. It's not been handed to him by any admin or anything. It's like he's driven backwards on the track too far and been automatically DQ'd. So Gerhardus Jorrison's also out of race 1. Now have still Jan Erik Skrefsrud a lap down.
Sorry, Catalano really slid hard into Ascari there, and really good car control actually just to keep it going. He'll allow everybody to catch him up now, including Paul Stump, who almost didn't know where to go there, and now sort of doesn't know where to go now either, on the way towards the final corner. But that was a big save from Catalano. If that's just his rear tyres going away from him, then he could be in a bit of trouble later on today. Still 6 laps to go. It's a long way around here to be nursing a pretty loose race car around. So let's see as Paul Stump now gets into the slipstream, and he will look to the inside.
Well, here we go. It's what you expect Monza to deliver in cars like this, is that it's difficult to lead, it's difficult to break away, and everyone wants a piece of the pie. Paul Stump from Catalano, from Russ Addy. Barry Hills and Todd Scholl looked out of this, but suddenly they get a little bit closer as the leaders get scrappy. Greg Garris even in 6th, not too far away from the lead or a potential podium if things really, really kick off.
Yeah, they are lurking there. I think, Garris maybe just a few tenths a lap too slow to stay with these guys on a normal day, although he might have been slightly delayed for the for contention really up here as they come down towards Ascari again. Hills and Scholl just too far behind at the moment, but what a recovery from Russadi. What a great recovery it has been. He's kept control of that car throughout the race after that half spin at the second chicane, and maybe he's going to come back to win this from here. It's a remarkable recovery.
Always getting the sense that anything's possible until the end of the final lap. So many slipstreaming and passing opportunities. How much grip's on that green concrete for Catalano? Not as much as he'd hope. Gives Russ Addy a really strong run at him on the front straight. Catalano also getting a little bit of slipstream off Paul Stump, so it is double toe territory for Russ Addy as he exceeds 260 kilometers an hour right towards the peak of 6th gear. He'll be neck and neck with Catalano. Catalano will win out in the braking zone, but Paul Stump, he locks up, he cuts over the curb, and he's going to lose the race lead, perhaps even damaging the floor of the car. The way that these things sit, where the plank is and how high those curbs are. A slowdown to clear is now cleared from Paul Stump. Catalano from Addy, from Paul Stump. Your leader running off the road compresses our top 5 even further.
Oh, you could hear it there, just braking too late and jumps over the curbs. As you say, damage a possibility, a slowdown possible as well, as Catalano makes a mistake now through the second chicane. Mistakes starting to creep in here over the course of this race. It's a tactically draining race as far as, battling for position and positioning yourself in the group. And it's taking its toll on some of these drivers right now. Catalano with that mistake allows Russ Addy to lead for the first time since his problems earlier on. He has another look, Catalano, into Ascari, but doesn't go through on the way up the hill this time round. Paul Stump is right back in the game as well, and doesn't, at least if he does have any damage, it doesn't look like it's too bad for him, and he's still sat there looking okay in 3rd place.
Track temperature continues to rise as well. It's now a marshmallow toasting 46 degrees Celsius, and I wonder if that begins to play into some of this as well. If the grip's beginning to go away from them a little bit towards the end of the race with the heat build up, with an increasing track temperature, and it's just making things a little more difficult. Addy leads. They're too wide behind him with Catalano driver's left-hand side. Paul Stump to driver's right-hand side is out of the slipstream and begins to drop back. So then he has to settle into that third. Just a tiny gulf between these three. Catalano locks up in one. Side-by-side wheels tangle.
Whoa. That was very close to disaster for all of them, but somehow Catalano gets away with it, and somehow it looks like they've got away without damage as well. Extraordinary.
Barry Hill sneaks through into third. Russ Addy with a 2-second lead. Could it become insurmountable? Catalano looking to go side by side through the second chicane again. Has not always worked out for him, and he's got a slowdown penalty, cutting a little bit too much of the curve. Going to be difficult to give it up through the Lesmos, particularly with Todd Scholl, 5th place, just behind him. Oh, well, that's one way.
Well, Catalano, unfortunately, might just be seeing this race go away from him. I wonder whether maybe there is damage. He did go up into the air through the first chicane that time, and it's not the first time there's been contact here. Unfortunately, there, I don't think Stump can be given much of the blame. I think he was pinned to the outside line, and I don't think he was given very much room, to be honest.
And look at Barry Hill's go. There's 2/3 of a car width there, and he goes for it. So suddenly, after I'd been praising everyone's braking prowess, there are a couple of lockups and errors beginning to show from our top drivers. Driver with the most positions gained in this race, though, Steve O'Malley. He was last driver with a qualifying time, and he's now up into 7th. Having a consistent one. This is side by side for second place. Barry Hill's with the inside line on Paul Stump, who we don't know if he's nursing just a tiny bit of damage potentially. Well, he's got a lock up and he's going to miss turn 1.
So what's that? Is that 3 in a row where he's not missed turn 1 every time, but had something go wrong through the first chicane? Is that 3 laps in a row, or is it 3 in the last 4 or something like that? It's pretty frequent anyway, and that time's definitely going to give him a slowdown. So Catalano's going to be right alongside him again, and Hills and Scholl are just going to continue their battle, which was for 4th earlier, is now for 2nd. Hills late on the brakes on the outside, and he goes through into 2nd position. And here comes Greg Garris, by the way. After all of the damage and the slowdowns and the consternation up front, he's now in this group and could even take a top 5 in these final few laps, because Paul Stump is looking pretty damaged now.
Oh, a decent racetrack this. No wonder they've kept it around since 1922 or whenever it opened in the Royal Gardens here. Greg Garris, he's got that slipstream, and suddenly he's back part of the action again. Would not doubt if Stump and Catalano do have just a tiny bit of damage after their interlocked wheels and collision. Catalano's really struggling, like maybe some of the floor downforce or something else is gone, or maybe his rear toe is knocked out and making it a little oversteery. The big winner out of all of this, Russ Addy, now has a near 4-second margin in the race lead, and he's about to see just 2 laps to go. What a zero to hero story for him it's at the moment. Absolutely.
I said it earlier on, and this is going to come back to bite me, unfortunately, but I said that, one mistake and you're going to be out of this group. And that has been the case for some, I suppose, but for Russ Addy, he's just come back again really nicely, and he now leads this race pretty nicely as well, just over 3 seconds in the lead, ahead of Hills and Scholl, who, with the best working together in the world, are not going to catch Russ Addy without an error now. Nearly 4 seconds in just 2 laps. That's not going to be reachable for these guys, unfortunately. So they will have to go back to the drawing board a little bit there, and come back again in race 2 to try and keep him in check. But what a great race we've seen. It's always fascinating at Monza, but the fact that these guys haven't really worried about the tactics too much and have just sort of gone for positions when they've been able to has just been a brilliant thing for this race.
And being of immense benefit to Russ Addy that they've continued to battle on behind him, including Barry Hills now getting to the dirty side of the racetrack, trying to break the toe, and then back to the other side, trying to protect the inside line to Ascari, and then he realises, okay, I'm safe. I've got to dive it in here, carry as much speed as will possibly be allowed, using all of the width through the first apex, hugging the right-hand side through the second to set it up to carry full throttle speed out. So there's your race leader, very bottom of the screen. Then Hills and Scholl, Catalano, a little bit of space either side of himself, and then Greg Garris 5th. Paul Stump, the pole sitter, now running back into 6th. The white flag waves for Russ Addy. One more lap of Monza.
And it's going to be a lap of honour, it looks like, for Russ Addy. Barry Hills has done a good job out the final corner to distance Todd Scholl by maybe just enough to keep this gap now in towards turn number 1. He has looked as Scholl, but he's not close enough. Shows that, I think these cars at Monza are sort of the perfect combination in the sense that you can distance the driver behind you enough to, you know, make sure they don't pass you every time, but also it's, you know, maybe more possible than a lot of circuits to actually make that pass as well. It's a great balance, and at the moment Scholl is just on the wrong side of that balance. He was not quite strong enough either out of the Parabolica or indeed the first chicane to actually make his way past, and now he's going to have to do something pretty unusual by making a pass either into Ascari or the very final corner of the race.
The slipstream's not a 300-meter long rope that you can pull along. It's a bit more like magnets where you don't feel anything until suddenly they're sort of 10 centimeters apart. They snap together and they're inseparable. So once you get to 0.3 of a second behind the car in front, incredibly powerful slipstream, but at a second and a half, not really noticing it. And that's helping out Russ Addy. He still leads with just one braking zone left to go. Barry Hill's doing a really solid job here, keeping all of his corner speed up, braking deep into the corners, but not so deep as to create a lock-up. He might be able to hold on to this second place on pure pace from Todd Scholl. The rest of the leading pack just in behind, but out of the Parabolica towards the start-finish line and the famous podium. First to two races for the final round of 60 plus racing adventures, Super Formula Lights. Russ Addy from fifth on the grid to spun out in the second chicane to the race win. Barry Hills and Todd Scholl join him on the podium. Roberto Catalano will no doubt be frustrated to be one spot shy of standing on Monza's podium.
Absolutely. He'll still have one more race, of course, to do it. There's still another one coming up with practice for that race starting in just less than 20 minutes time. So we'll have that in a short while. But Catalano with maybe not the first race he was hoping for here today. Sort of best of the rest, as I'd describe it. Steve O'Malley finishes in 7th place here, 37 seconds off the lead, but nearly half a minute off the driver in front. There's a definite break in the field here with the top 5, or top 6 rather, comfortably quicker than the rest of the field, and then you have those other battles a little bit further down. In the background, there was a battle actually between Karant Jungsfeld and Douglas Beasley, but this has been separated on the very last lap in favour of Jungsfeld, who is going to finish 11th place in race 1 tonight.
Yes. 6 cars having gone through the pit lane, another one having not gone into the pit lane but being disqualified regardless for Gerhard Sjörason. And we take it to the line. And that's everyone. Russ Addy, he does not lead every lap, but he does get the fastest lap of the race and the race win. At the end of 16 laps, Barry Hills, Todd Scholl joining him on that podium. Roberto Catalano, 4th place. Greg Garris in 5th, ahead of Paul Stump. Steve O'Malley, Franz Josef Sturm, Ulf Olsen, and Peter Holstrom as the top 10. Keep an eye on this, Ewan, because I got a sense that on the final lap, there were 2 or 3 cars that might have run out of fuel in the last 100 metres. Karo Kongsfjell finishing in 11th, ahead of Douglas Beasley in 12th. That timing doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, the timing's wrong for Beasley, but he did finish 12th. And Jan-Erik Skrefsrud a lap down. Gerhard Sjörason disqualified for a reason that I didn't quite catch, and Neil Canning, 2 big hits in this race, the second one early on, 4 laps in, taking him out of it. Is anyone going to speak to us? You bet they are. Let's go for a wander down the podium and to our race winner. Russ Addy joins us, and well, I'm sure you weren't bored in that one.
No, I haven't talked to you guys in a while. I thought for sure I was stuck back in 5th, and voila, I win. That's amazing.
Well, Ewan O'Leary was sure that you'd thrown away any chance of the win once you were no longer part of that leading pack, and that's really the commentator's curse that you needed to elevate your performance one further step and get back in there.
Well, I want to thank you guys then.
Monza's an interesting track, a fun track, obviously incredibly famous. How did you find the wheel-to-wheel racing and the racecraft for this car here today?
It was pretty good. It seems like the car's got a little bit of push, and it's just the exit is so critical. If you mess up your exit, you can't gain.
Yeah, a lot of straight line braking zones, a lot of traction out of slow corners, and then heaps of time at full throttle, obviously. What sort of strength and distance of the slipstream were you finding? Because in anything that doesn't have 1,000 horsepower, that's always what we talk about at Monza.
Yeah, it seemed like you had to be within 7/10 to hold steady. If you were at 6, you could gain, but you got to be 4 or 5 to really be able to get close enough to pull off a pass. Those guys were just racing against each other and were shedding time each lap, so that really helped.
Well, you pull off a couple passes from 5th on the grid to written off by Ewan O'Leary to the race win, and it's a famous podium here at Monza. You must be pretty pleased.
Yeah, I'm pretty psyched. A little sweaty, and for some reason or other, when you guys broadcast, I do all right for a change.
So you always say, with just a few tiny exceptions, but it's great to speak with you again in such great circumstances, and best of luck with the one race still to come.
Thanks, David. Hopefully I can repeat. We'll see.
Whole podiums here for us, Ewan. Barry Hills finished second.
Absolutely, Barry, welcome in. Good to have you with us, and congrats on a podium in race 1 today. How was race number 1? It was a great fight to watch. What was it like from your point of view?
Well, it was good fun. Yes, very tight. Paul and Roberto were tussling there, which enabled me to keep with them. And then I got lucky and got past. But I'm very pleased with that race. Yes, it was good fun. And Todd hard on my heels towards the end there.
How sort of mentally draining almost is it to be running so close with everybody else so often around here at Monza? It's unlike any other circuit that I watch in the world, in my opinion, is that everybody stays so close. The battles are so intense throughout the whole race. How different is that to some of the other races, or is it not at all really compared to the other tracks we've gone to?
Yes, as you say, the draft is very strong here. The thing you have to be careful of is going in the back of someone. So it's quite stressful really, but great fun. Well,
congratulations on getting a podium in race 1 tonight. Maybe race 2 will be even better. We'll look forward to it. But for now, Barry, thanks for chatting to us.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thanks very much. That's Barry Hills, podium in race number 1 here tonight from Monza.
In third place joins us Todd. I don't think we've ever chatted before, but here you are on the podium. Great result.
Tried once before.
My sincere apologies.
Okay.
So starting on that second row, I mean, we had almost everyone that featured in the top 6 get to lead a lap or be up front. What level of sort of risk were you willing to take?
The usual, not real tremendous risk. Figured there'd be an incident or two ahead of me. And Russ spun once outside of, where was he? The first chicane. So I got the 4th and he repassed me, and then it was really close, 1 to 4 ahead of me. I'm like, I was very happy to sit there about a second and a half behind and see how the race unfolded. And then, Paul and Roberto, again, I didn't see if they had a contact or anything, but they evidently had something, and I was able to get by them. And then Roberto was wide on first Lesmo, so I got into 3rd behind Barry, and I just decided, let me see if I can just hold that draft and keep Roberto behind me. So he was over a second 2 behind me, and he stayed that way the last 3 or 4 laps. So I figured maybe the last lap I'll have a chance at Barry. And that was the race.
And as we think about the final round of the season, you're second in the standings behind Roberto Catalano, but providing a great chunk of points to your team where you lead the team's championship?
Yeah, we've been great. Greg and I mean, this is the second season in a row. We were just consistent. I mean, that's how I drive. That's how we both drive pretty much. We just have consistently good, or at least decent finishes or good finishes. And if I could bring home top fives just about most races, that'll yield to be good in the standings. And as far as the team championship, that catapulted us. I think we were over 100 points ahead second. So it was a great season for the team, no doubt.
Well, great to chat again, and best of luck going into race 2, just to see the season out.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. I look forward to watching the broadcast. Thank you guys for all you guys do.
Third place, Todd Scholl chatting with us. Everyone does seem pretty keen for race 2. No one on that podium saying, no, I'm going to pack my bags and take an early mark on this season. And when you've got that kind of back and forth racing, everyone knows they stand a chance. And you and I think that's the sort of thing that's going to let us send this season out with a bang in the final race.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was a great opening race of the day. Really enjoyed it. It's such an unusual circuit, Monza, in the sense of how these races actually pan out. This is super speedway racing for road racers, isn't it, really, at Monza? And I'm sure another similar race is yet to come for race 2. And as you say, sending the season off in the right way with a great final round.
Yeah, so stay with us on RaceSpotTV. We go to a break. When we come back, race 2 of the season finale of 60 Plus Racing Adventures Super Formula Light League Season 35. It's time for the last day of school for 60 Plus Racing Adventures, Season 35 of the Super Formula Light League. This is the final round, and this is about to be the final race. But before they line up for another 16-lap race, they will go qualifying again. The question becomes, can Russ Addy go back-to-back? Can Roberto Catalano get on the podium or even the top step of his home race on his way to crowning the championship? The team's championship also looks relatively sewn up. But as Ewan O'Leary joins me, David Haynes, for RaceSpotTV live coverage, we were running some numbers, and there's just one more question.
Yeah. Paul Stump is just, 37 points behind Mike McCormick going into this final race of the season. We've already calculated drop rounds made easier by the fact that McCormick is not here, unless he's popped up now. No, he hasn't, has he? So he's still away. We think, anyway, that Paul Stump needs a podium in this last race to grab a top 5 in the championship. All the other top 5 positions seem to be settled. Greg Garris is not actually that far ahead of Stump, but because he's here at least, should be fine. Russ Addy and Todd Scholl also quite close to him, but they all finished quite similarly and quite well. So, it's all about that last spot inside the top 5, and we think, rough maths, that Paul Stump needs a podium here after that race 1 performance, and why not that he can go and get it as well based on what we just saw in race 1. He's got a decent chance.
Would you like to guess the track temperature right now in qualifying?
There's the answer. I don't have to guess anymore. It's a month earlier, but about 40 degrees Fahrenheit cooler somehow, so that'll be a relief.
Yes, indeed. 20 degrees Celsius in the air, 26 degrees Celsius on the track, and a very, very gentle breeze from the north, 3.2 kilometers an hour. And make sure you wear a hat and sunscreen if you're out there, though. The sun is a deadly laser. Paul Stump will have to be laser focused as he begins his first of 2 qualifying laps, successfully on pole position for race 1, but did not convert it in what was a very tense wheel-to-wheel and at times messy race 1. All 12 drivers you see on the timing column are out on track right now. Most of them have begun their first flying lap. It actually looks like Russ Addy and Greg Garris are the furthest around, but Paul Stump, we know, for 1 lap pace is a man to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as long as he can get through the early laps, and well, not even the early laps, was it? Because it's quite late on where he got his damage in race 1. As long as he can get through all that, then he should be able to get in the conversation for this race win. But in terms of overall race pace and, over the course of the race distance, Russ Addy certainly seemed to have it in that race 1 of the day. See where they will qualify now, though, as they bring the end of their opening lap times of this second qualifying session. 10 minutes, but just 2 laps for all of the drivers to get on the board. Stump now makes his way through Ascari down towards the parabolic at the final turn. Relatively late apex required, but not a particularly long. Oh, he's missed the apex completely there. As now comes onto the front straight. Still 1 more lap to go as Garris sets the early mark.
Yeah, so no slipstream to be had in qualifying, and the fastest anyone's getting is 254 k's an hour, knowing that in a tow, some of them were exceeding 260. Times come in. Roberto Catalano goes to the top ahead of Paul Stump and Ulf Olsen. Greg Garris, who was first to set the time, tumbles to 5th as Todd Scholl comes into 3rd. Barry Hills also looking to set a time. Him and Peter Holstrom and Janek Skrefsrud and Gerhardus Jorrison. And Barry Hills goes to 4th. These cooler track temperatures, I think, will see more improvement going to the second flying lap.
Yeah, perhaps we will not sort of see that ceiling be hit quite so early with the lower temperatures. It's remarkable, though, how much things can change with such a severe change in temperature. Quite like the idea of going to, normally most series that I do anyway, go on the current date in real life. See, when you're doing 2 races, it means there's means there's basically no difference at all between the 2 sessions when there is 2 sessions on a day. But it certainly does ensure that. You can see the longer shadows as well, because it is April and at 10:30 in the morning or so, just before 11 o'clock in the morning. Means it's the sun's not quite as high in the sky, not quite making as much of an impression either on the surface, keeping that track temperature down in this session. We'll see how big the improvements are then for Paul Stump. We know that he can improve through the final corner, because we saw him miss the apex through there first time round. See if he can go a bit better this time round as he comes up towards the line now, as Rosati jumps in front of him. That's a big improvement from 111. What about Stump? Oh my word, 36.2 and that's not quite true, but it is a 42.3 and that is the best time so far.
Yeah, almost everyone improving. We'll see what Todd Scholl does. He jumps up into second. So Roberto Catalano's done his 2 flying laps, and he's already been pushed down to third, with more time still to come from Barry Hills and Gerhardus Jorrison and Peter Holstrom and others. Paul Stump looks like he might have 2/10 on them for the moment. Here comes Gerhardus Jorrison, currently 9th on a 144 flat. I could see that improving at least a little bit here.
Should do. Yeah, very much does. Up to 6th place. So it does seem that these times are very different. Garris is the one who's really qualified a lot worse than he did first time round. See whether he can improve from there. But we haven't got quite such a clear break in the group. We'll see whether over the course of race pace and the next 16 laps that are still to come, whether it's just going to happen all over again. But yeah, I'm not sure this is quite the big time gaps like what we saw in race 1 of the day.
And just like that, every driver's done their 2 flying laps with 3 minutes left in the session. We can twiddle our thumbs, talk about chocolate, weather. That's a pastime of your nation.
that is what we reach for when you've got nothing else to say. Reach for the weather. But thing is, in England, it is a talking point, whereas anywhere else in the world.
How is yours?
The weather? It's very raining today. Very raining, very rainy, as you might expect. We've had a very good summer, but September's hit and it's got miserable.
Today in Brisbane is 12 degrees, heading for a high of 25, mostly cloudy, no rain, but severely overcast, 99% humidity. Wind's currently light at 5 kilometers an hour. So 12 to 25, but no rain, but a bit overcast. I'll take that. That's a good day, not windy. I'm pleased with that.
I'd take out the humidity though. That sounds pretty. Well, I just don't like humidity very much. I guess maybe it's not the same for everyone, but yeah, we're seeing the pole up by the way at the moment for Paul Stump. We've maybe gone a little bit early, but we know that this is going to be the pole up for Stump. No doubting his 1 lap speed, that's for sure. You said it earlier on at the start of the session, and it's proven to be true here again as well. 42.3. It's not going to be beaten by anybody else, and even if they have more opportunities, I'm not sure anybody was going to be able to get close to that lap time anyway. So Paul Stump, takes pole by the looks of things.
Yeah, another solid effort. The thing that I notice, of course, is that you got your top 9 all within 1 second of pole. When we think about all of the long straights, every time that you get up into 6th gear around a lap here, if you can just be consistent, stay within that half a second, the margin that Russ Addy told us about, then you could gain 2/10 on one straight, 2/10 on another straight, and you could stick with someone who is half a second a lap or more faster than you in qualifying, if you can be consistent. So if you can have that feel on the brakes and make sure you just get to the line where you can accelerate cleanly out of the corners and not, pick up wheel spin or get too deep into corners where you cost yourself some time, like bombing too deep into turn 1 or getting scruffy through the Ascari chicane or any of those places. So for Paul Stump, 0.2 of a second in his back pocket, another front row start, not bad at all.
Absolutely. The only driver really who does worse than what he did in the first qualifying session for the race one is Greg Garris, who's down in 8th place, and he'll hope that he doesn't get caught up in a similar incident like what we saw down in towards turn number 1 in race 1. That very much interrupted the race and split the field in two, although I do think there's 6 drivers who are probably quicker than the other 6. You don't want to be caught behind that. It's difficult to close these gaps back down again, although not impossible.
So this is the grid for race 2 from Monza, 60 plus Racing Adventures Super Formula Light. Paul Stump is once again on the pole position with Todd Scholl sharing the row with him for the side-by-side rolling start. Though Paul Stump was very keen to get going quickly in race 1. He might do the same, or he might elect to do different in race 2. Roberto Catalano, champion-elect of season 35, will start from 3rd. Russ Addy, race 1's winner, starting there in 4th. 1 spot better than he did in race 1. He can't finish 1 spot higher than he did in race 1, so we'll see what he does from there. Teammates Barry Hills and Gerhardus Jorrison 5th and 6th, and they have 2nd in the team's championship sewn up at this stage. The combination of Scholl and Garris have taken the win for the team's championship. Ulf Olsen starts 7th, and there is Garris in 8th. Franz Josef Sturm in 9th. Jan-Erik Skrefsrud, Douglas Beasley, and Peter Holstrom at the end of the grid. There are a couple of drivers here that we didn't see a whole lot of, or when we didn't see great things from. But I've seen Beasley and Holstrom race many a time before, and I think they will have learned something from race 1 heading to race 2, and maybe that learning is just get out of the throttle 50 metres earlier for turn 1, lap 1 at Monza.
Yeah, that's probably going to be the remedy there for those further down the field, but it doesn't always alleviate the problems. I think, you know, some of the drivers, especially on the inside row of the first race start, were almost too slow in towards turn 1 and sort of ended up hitting each other as a result in towards the first chicane. That's not particularly helpful, as we know, and we saw a lot of drivers in pit lane at the end of the opening lap as a result of that. Hopefully this time round we can have a more clean start, and you know, Garris especially, who's definitely got the speed to be with these guys up towards the front, is going to be hoping for that, and except for Jorrison, I suppose, as well, who's shown good pace in that qualifying session alongside his teammate on row 3. See how the teammates can get on there in that row on the early laps here, but it's bound to be a great end to the season here.
Indeed, and it is much cooler track conditions still for race 2 than it was for race 1, 27 degrees Celsius. Tyres ought to hold on longer, but they might take a tiny bit more to get going. We are about to get going with the green flag. Paul Stump holds them and now goes. Long run towards turn 1 once again. Roberto Catalano getting the slipstream off the pole sitter, who then moves across. Oh, Catalano moves across, nearly shoving Todd Scholl off the road. Russ Addy looks 3 wide and their wheels interlocked, and Catalano's going to head into the wall this time. Addy's backward, making a hobby of that.
We hope that, you know, it was going to be a cleaner start towards turn number 1, but the 1 and 2 in the championship, the title rivals, have collided on the way down towards turn number 1, and that is that. Paul Stump has got a big gap out front as Jorrison and Hills, the teammates, go side by side. Jorrison straight through, and they're going to try and work together now to bring back the race leader, but that's 2 of the big contenders out of this race very early.
And so, believe it or not, Russ Addy's going again. He's just passed Greg Garris. He's back into 5th somehow. And Paul Stump has a 1.2 second lead, but with teammates behind him that may be able to work together to shut down the gap. Todd Scholl and Roberto Catalano are both on the tow truck after colliding in the squeeze down towards turn 1. Catalano sure did move a little bit right to left as he was trying to follow the slipstream of Paul Stump, who had clean air out front and moving right to left, heading towards the parabolica to round out this first lap. Stump's got 1.5 seconds in his back pocket, as a win here would give him the Super 70s championship.
Absolutely. Lots to conjure with on this final day of the season. Battles inside the top 5 overall as well, as we've talked about for Paul Stump. 1.5 seconds now, his margin. His pace certainly does deserve a race win, but is it going to get one? As Ulf Olsen in the background just defends up a little bit from Rusadi. He come back very, very well after problems in race 1. He's doing it again here, inside it for 4th place, and he's straight through. 3.5 seconds to the leader. That won't phase him. He's got a long time in this race to bring that back again.
So this, not really leaving a car length there, a car width even, Roberto Catalano, as he was side by side with Todd Scholl heading towards the braking zone of 1. Paul Stump was definitely looking in his mirrors as he led them, moved to try to preferentially give the slipstream across the 2 drivers so that they collectively wouldn't be able to challenge him. This is the onboard from Todd Scholl. Roberto Catalano appears, squeezes. You can't brake with your left side tyres on the grass.
No, but you've got to remember that Catalano had someone on the inside of him. Not sure who it was, didn't identify at the time.
He didn't quite.
Sorry?
You could see Russ Addy looking to the 3rd lane, but Addy was not overlapped, had no slipstream, and Catalano had already made that first move trying to follow Paul Stump's slipstream before Russ Addy appeared in the picture, I think.
Okay. I mean, you may well be right. That's just my live reading of it, which obviously may not be completely accurate in the madness here. Yeah, he's not quite alongside, actually, is he? It looked like he was to my eye, but you're right. From that angle, clear. Oh, open and shut, and I didn't realise that had happened either. I was too busy focusing on Catalano going for a big crash on the other side of the road. That was a spin down in towards turn number 1 for Addy as well. So it was all happening there. Thankfully, the weird thing there for Addy is that was a spinning towards turn 1 on lap 1, where normally you see drivers piling in and potentially crashing into him as well. But on that occasion, I mean, it just looked like he had a spin at any sort of point in the race there. Just rejoined without really having to wait for anybody to go past him, and straight back on his way again.
Well, it looked like he spun pinching the rear brakes as well in the first race, heading into the 2nd chicane. So maybe just the timing of the downshifts, the way that he's braking, they can kind of lock the rears, handbrake it a little bit, potentially. It's Franz Josef Sturm. He's been battling with Greg Garris. Sturm's one of the big movers of this race so far, from 9th on the grid up into 6th. Hardis Jorrison navigated his way deftly through lap 1, turn 1, to be 4 positions gained from 6 on the grid into 2nd place, leading his teammate Barry Hills. But as he does so, he does not have a match for the pace that Paul Stump has got now, 3 seconds clear. These two, Jorrison and Hills, can begin to smell a bit of Russ Addy. And Russ Addy can smell a podium.
I think he's probably going to get it as well, based on his speed so far tonight. Just go back to Ulf Olsen and Franz Josef Sturm just quickly, by the way. Those two are very close in the championship as well. In fact, just 1 point apart going into today. Barry Hill's quite close to them as well. Now, they are outside the top 5, so I guess it matters less as you go down. But even so, they are all drivers who are very, very close to one another at the moment in the championship, as well as battling for positions. Greg Garris trying to get involved in amongst this. Not sure quite where his speed has gone, really. He was decisively one of the top 6 in race 1 was Garris, and this time round he's certainly not. That was a big cut at turn 1 as well, but he looks like he's got away with it.
Immediately looked to my timing screen to see if there was a slowdown penalty for that much of a cut, but you're right, he has mostly gotten away with it. It was a good line, it was a good run, and he strikes back heading towards the 2nd chicane versus Franz Josef Sturm, and does so very successfully. So just as Ewan O'Leary was questioning where his pace might have gone, that looks great from me.
It does in the slipstream. Maybe I should just try an anti-curse and see if, say something I don't actually believe so that I can actually be right or something, But anyway.
You're doing wonders for a couple of these drivers.
No. Rosadi will be hoping that at some point this time I say that 4.5 seconds is far too far back for him to win this race from, and then he can go and win maybe later on. But anyway, that's his situation at the moment. He's just in behind Barry Hills and Jorrison, who's really found some speed as well in race 2. Now to be running in 2nd. And he's very close there, isn't he? He's even going to go into the parabolica maybe. Or is he just going to wait his turn? Does wait through the final corner, and it will be turn 1 for that battle in that case.
Some people just need someone to believe in them to achieve their full potential. Russ Addy just needs some haters to prove wrong, apparently. Barry Hills is looking a tiny bit vulnerable. Russ Addy's gotten to that magic 2-3 tenths behind where the slipstream becomes super powerful, and he slingshots past at over 260 k's an hour into the braking zone of turn 1, which he's done just about right. Got to that second apex perfectly. Russ Addy up into a podium spot. Rest of the field comes through the first chicane. Ulf Olsen from Greg Garris, Franz Josef Sturm, Jan-Erik Skrefsrud, Peter Holstrom, Douglas Beasley, Todd Scholl and Roberto Catalano look like they've elected to not come back onto the circuit. Barry Hills is going to come back at Russ Addy.
It's a good pass. Hills up into the top 3 now, and he's joining his teammate on the podium. See whether the two teammates can indeed finish together on the podium a little bit later on this afternoon, or whether it's just going to be reserved for the one of them. So he just weaves around out of Lesmo 2 there, trying to stay out of the slipstream of Russ Addy here, who pulls himself to the right-hand side there. Just staying out of the slipstream again on the way towards Ascari. Flying through here, high speed, not actually much braking required in these pretty light machines. Now towards the Parabolica again, another straight. As we approach 1/3 distance in this race, Russ Addy is finding this a little bit difficult at the moment to contend with Barry Hills.
Giving a world of support to Gerhardus Jorrison, who scampers away just a little bit. Fastest lap of the race from Paul Stump, already quicker than the fastest lap of the race of race 1, and the difference in track temperature will account for a whole lot of that. Here comes Addy again, 7 kilometers an hour faster, closes a car length almost every second, and as long as the rears don't lock, he looks very good on the brakes. The problem is then getting further down the road and trying to break that toe versus Barry Hills, who is both persistent and so far rather tidy.
So far, through the first third, it's a markedly different race from race number 1. Both have had their own interest in different ways. Hills and Addy there really close through the second chicane, and will try and close on Jorrison as much as possible. As he said earlier, Hills is doing his teammate quite a big favour here, but if Addy keeps getting past for a lap or so and doing a lot of closing, then soon enough Jorrison's going to be brought back into slipstream range, and once that's happened, not much can be done. Not sure where Jorrison has found this speed from compared to race number 1, where he was a long way down. Maybe he was just hampered by that lap 1 incident, never really recovered, and this is maybe more like what we should have seen from him in that first race of the day. But he's putting up a good fight right now, and he's right in the conversation for this podium.
2 car lengths back and closing. Barry Hills hits 6th gear, and the magic speed to the inside of the Parabolica. 2 of them do close on Jorrison just a little bit, and Russ Addy will be well placed to do his work down in towards turn 1 again. 2 car lengths back. I think he'll actually end up out of the slipstream a little bit too early. You want to wait till you're doing about 250 k's an hour and then really wind up that slingshot. They'll just be level, side by side, heading down the front straight at Monza, with Russ Addy having the inside line. That's typically the right of way. And the swap engineers again. Addy's still a second behind Jorrison. Needs to close that down to 5 tenths if it's going to stand a chance to continue to close it.
And Hills will be close into the second chicane here, but close enough, not quite. And look at the speed they've got through here compared to Jorrison. They're getting a couple of tenths easily through there, so it's one of the places where they really are, or really do have the advantage rather. Seem to be pushing ever harder as well through Lesmo 1. We saw it even on Paul Stump's qualifying lap, that actually none of the drivers really were taking too much of the AstroTurf actually on the outside of turn 6 there, but they're getting a little bit braver as this race goes on, and maybe just pushing a little bit harder as it goes on as well. A race with, for these guys, less mistakes, certainly with after Russ Addy's spin through turn 1 on lap number 1. It's been all clean from there and in, and he's caught right up to Jorrison now. Less than 5 seconds off the lead, but behind second place and going for second here, at least having a look.
knows when to time it, and if you're not going to get a clean run into the parabolic, you're better off to wait, because the highest speeds on the racetrack and the best overtaking opportunity, while there still are multiple, is down here into turn 1 over the start finish line past the grid boxes. And here Russ Addy has timed it to perfection to try to take second place. Looking good again, so long as he can get it stopped from 260 k's an hour down to 70, just a cool 200 kilometers an hour, give or take. It's mostly take. I'm stretching the truth a tiny bit, but Addy goes second, Yorison and Hills third and fourth. And there's been a tiny bit of drama for Greg Garris. Oh, he's got a heavily damaged car, and so does Ulf Olsen.
They were definitely both stopped there from 5th and 6th position. It looks like they may have had some contact as they battled away for that last spot inside the top 5 a few moments ago. Look at the pushing again there from Addy. So close to the gravel on the left-hand side as Yorison tries now to stay with him. Barry Hills ideally needs to be ahead of Yorison now because he is quicker than his Dutch teammate, and Russ Addy is in danger of getting away. Here's what happened on the replay. Oh,
that's a bit of rear locking, isn't it? Verstappen, Hamilton, hello? Are they owed a royalty check?
It's not dissimilar, was it? Between the two of them?
How they ended up, for sure.
Yeah, well, yeah. Through the gravel trap on turn 2. Olsen in the green and yellow loses the car and then just clips Garris, who goes up onto his roof, and Olsen gets away without any, well, not massive damage, I suppose. He does lose his top 5 position, and Garris has got a tow back to pit lane, which is a lot more costly for him.
It's normally tough to drive race cars when they're upside down.
Not quite how they were designed.
No. As the saying goes, you know, race car backwards is slow, race car upside down is expensive.
Yes, this is that is a good saying. I've never heard that before.
No, sorry, race car backwards is race car upside down is expensive.
Oh,
So goes the saying. Just cross the halfway point, Ewan. You surely you feel like 4.7 seconds is too big of an ask for Russ Addy.
What are you trying to do here? I don't think Paul Stump will be very happy if I say those words quite as explicitly as that. But you know, I said it in race number 1 because you know I not just for the sake of saying, I did genuinely believe that Rossetti was too far away at that time, but he turned around and it was a fantastic drive. And again, I do believe again now that he's too far away. But you know, you do have that sense of doubt. Given what he did in race 1, that you know, even though this is actually a bigger gap with less of the race left and less things that could go wrong for Paul Stump, you got to remember that there were drivers around him that could have had incidents, and it did having incidents in race number 1, which slowed him down a lot. That there's less that can go wrong, there's less of the race, there's more of a gap, but somehow I'm more doubtful this time round because of what happened before.
Greg Garris was just rejoining the race there, a lap down. Ulf Olsen is back out on track. Douglas Beasley is battling Franz Josef Sturm. Didn't see a whole lot of Beasley in race 1. Gonna see a little bit of him here in the very, very final race of season 35 as he's down the inside of turn 1 and up into 7th place.
It's a classic place to make the move, and Douglas Beasley up to 7th. Jannik Skrestrud, by the way, in 5th place. Is a fantastic drive so far in this second race of the day. We've got a lot of new names battling for a top 5, and Peter Hallström as well, bouncing back from race 1 as Sturm responds by immediately retaking that 7th place away from Douglas Beasley.
So it goes in Monza. Oh, so commonly, almost every overtaking opportunity then followed by another long straight. So a couple of close battles on track. The teammates Gerhard Storrison and Barry Hills. Peter Hallström looks to have closed a tiny bit on Jannik Skrefsrud, and Franz Josef Sturm, having been passed by Beasley, got back and has now put a second into him. Different strengths in different areas by the looks of things. There is Skrefsrud and Hallström just up ahead of them.
Does look like it. The gap, by the way, for 7th created slightly or exacerbated slightly by the big slide that Beasley just had through Ascari, that entry. Well, we have seen a couple of occasions this round, both races, where on turning especially, it just seemed that, you know, a little bit sideways, but for the most part okay, and good car control for Beasley to stay at least on the road, facing the right way. By the way, just behind Barry Hills, that's not a driver catching them in this battle for second place rather, but it is in fact Greg Garris, who has actually continued on, unlike Scholl and Catalano, who decided that was that. Garris carries on one lap down, and fair play to him for that. It's a shame we're not going to be able to chat to our champion at the end of this season, because it's not been the final round to remember on home soil.
No, unfortunate for him. Incredibly strong at other rounds in the championship previously. It looks like wins at the Red Bull Ring, Silverstone, Fuji, Road America, Road Atlanta, Mugello, so that's a win on home soil, and Barcelona and Mount Panorama, only falling short at Portimao, which he didn't go to, and Okayama, which he didn't win, and now Monza, which obviously he didn't win race 1, he finished 4th, and now he's out of race 2.
Quite decent selection if you're Italian, by the way, of home soil races. Maybe this is not, I don't know where in Italy he's from, but if he's not from the north, then this would not be very close to where he lives at all. Could be Mazzano or Mugello for him, don't know.
At one point we asked him which one was his favourite, and I can't remember the answer. Imola and Mazzano are actually not all that far apart from each other.
I don't think Mugello was that far from that part of the world either, is it? In Tuscany?
Haven't got a globe or a world atlas in front of me right now.
Need a racetrack world atlas.
Monza is certainly a fair bit further north than those three, though, being just north of Milan.
It's surprisingly close to Milan, isn't it, city centre? I think it's only about 30 kilometres away.
When you look at it on the maps, it does very much feel like Monza is a rather central part of the city of Milan.
Yeah.
It's all rather contiguous to the eye. This is on board with Hallström, basically level with Jannik Skrefsrud in terms of lap time, last lap. If Hallström can just keep edging closer, eventually the slipstream will do its work. Jannik Skrefsrud, the Norwegian, Peter Hallström, the Swede, per their iRacing flags. My brother and his wife used to live in Norway, and if you live in Norway close enough to the border with Sweden, you drive over to buy your groceries because it's cheaper.
Wow, is that by a significant amount enough? Wow.
I think by a significantly enough, yeah, if you're going to go do a big shop, which is a technical term, or if you are going to buy maybe a bottle of spirits or something, there's a not insignificant price difference there as well.
I remember when I went to the Netherlands in January, there was this very significant difference in fuel tax between there and Belgium, so it was very much ideal to just drive to Belgium to get your car filled up. It's, you know, multiple tens of pence a litre cheaper. Yeah, it happens in these parts of the world, but that's not a benefit that we have in Great Britain, I must admit. It's a bit of an arduous journey to the rest of the world.
I mean, they built one tunnel, but that's about it. The rest of it's ferries and planes and London Luton and such. Barry Hills on board with him in 4th, slipstreaming his teammate Gerhard Storrison, but the duo of them have almost let Russ Addy slip past their fingers. my very last bordering fuel tax thing is that there's multiple bridges that will let you go between Singapore and Malaysia, and in Singapore, fuel is almost 2 to 3 times more expensive. So to prevent people driving out of Singapore, filling up in Malaysia and driving back into Singapore, you're not allowed to leave Singapore with less than 3/4 of a tank of fuel in your car.
Wow.
His Sturm, great run out of Ascari behind Peter Hallström, but no idea which way to take it as Peter Hallström stayed driver's right. That checks up Franz Josef Sturm. The German driver has arrived on the Norwegian and Swiss battle and around the outside of the Parabolica. Hallström and Sturm might be both a little shaken from that.
Was very, very close. Sturm's indecision there very nearly ramped him straight over the back of Hallström, who wouldn't have been impressed about crashing in the second race in a row. Sturm now on the outside is going to get the benefit of a slipstream from Skresrud, and the way he caught up to those two, looks like the quickest driver of the trio, but we'll see whether that rings true or not in a moment. Only 3 laps to go, including the one they've just started, and Skresrud has got some defending to do here.
This for a top 5 in a 3-way tussle. Skresrud, Sturm and Hallström. They are 22 seconds behind 4th place, so your top 4 have a not insignificant pace advantage over the rest. Last lap was off pace from Skresrud as well. So consistency towards the end of the race has been tough in race 1 and race 2. I put it down to tyre temperatures and track temperatures in race 1. Maybe it's also a factor in race 2. Paul Stump with 2 laps to go now to take the Super 70s Championship lead at the final race, at the final chance. He's got a 7-second lead over Russ Addy. Here's Sturm, he's going for another one. He's past Hallström, and now he's going past Jan-Erik Skresrud.
Oh, that was a bit of a squeeze as well to get back to the racing line. Or maybe the camera was just foreshortening the angle there, but that was Sturm up into the top 5, and the way he's got past these guys looks like it's going to be difficult for them to repass again. Jan-Erik Skresrud has got to do something pretty quickly here. Sturm, though, punching a hole in the air for the first time in a while as he gets out front in this group. Is that going to allow Skresrud a chance down into turn 1? He's looking, but he's not close enough, and now he's got a real big task to stay with Sturm on this penultimate lap so that he can draft and get back past again before the end of this race. That's going to be tricky.
Sturm saving some of his best for last. Jumping up into the 5th position. All of that battling brought Douglas Beasley a little bit close. So in multiple places through the field, on the 2nd to last lap, there's still a little bit of fight in it. Johannes Jorgensen and Barry Hills, even this result won't bring the team's championship back in their favour. So is this just a straight fight? Do they engineer something? What do you do on the final lap when you're battling your teammate?
I think it's last race of the season. Maybe they'll be a little bit looser about it and just think, well, let's do whatever. But maybe they'll take it a bit more seriously than I would, which is not surprising. We'll see whether Barry Hills will challenge Jorgensen or not. Got to remember that Barry Hills had a decent race 1, finishing in 2nd place. He's not going to do any better than that, so I guess you would only be taking points away from your team by overtaking Jorgensen, because this isn't going to be the race that counts for Barry Hills.
Twice on the pole position, Paul Stump, looking to make it a win in race 2, looking to take the Super 70s Championship. Team already sealed up in the favour of Greg Garris and Todd Scholl. Outright champion already sealed up for Roberto Catalano. In the final race, it's about pride, it's about destiny, and it's about taking that Super 70s Championship for Paul Stump if he can. 5.79 kilometres is a lap here at Monza. Stump has held his composure and his nerve incredibly well when it was a tough ask in race 1. He's come back stronger in race 2.
You might think that it's unfortunate that Mike McCormick has had to miss this round for whatever reason, but you've got to remember that Paul Stump missed the first 4 rounds in a row. So not only that doesn't get covered by all of your drop rounds, he's taken donut scores on legitimate scores that he's had this season, and of course everyone that he's been at has counted towards his scores. So it's been high pressure for him, but finally at the very end he's done what needed to be done on the last race of the season.
He's the king of one lap here at Monza. And as he found his space and his stride, Paul Stump takes the win. With an incredibly clean performance in race 2. Russ Addy's going to follow him home in second, and there's no shenanigans to be had. Johannes Jorgensen will find third. Anything could happen for the rest of the positions. Franz Josef Sturm, Jan-Erik Skrefsrud, Peter Holstrom and Douglas Beasley with a late race charge.
Stum is going to keep 5th in the end. He did look like the quickest of the 4, and he's taken that position pretty comfortably in the end. Hallstrom not quite close enough to Skrefsrud to pass him, and that's been the case for the last few laps as well. But this is a marked improvement from Douglas Beasley, who finished well over a minute off the win in race number 1, finishing positionally all the way down in 12th place, our last driver to finish. Well, nearly a minute closer to the race leader this time round, and the race winner eventually Paul Stump. But perhaps more importantly, up to 8th place in this final race of the season for Douglas Beasley. Unfortunately for him, though, he'll be last of those who have been at every one of the 12 rounds this season.
You ever wonder about what it would be like to have Autodromo Nazionale Monza all to yourself?
Well, Folson doesn't have to.
Nope. That's the position he finds himself in. If I had it all to myself, I'd get a Hot Wheels car and I'd go noom noom, and that's what I'd do. Maybe I'd go for a bike ride. Maybe I'd do what I know some people do, and they walk their dog around here. Popular park. When there's race cars on the track, and when there's not, Ulf Olsen is going to complete his season and make sure that in the last race he doesn't miss the last lap. It locks in a slightly less dramatic race 2, but that's exactly how Paul Stump wanted it. He wanted to be able to take that pole to a victory, and he does, and including the fastest lap later on in the race on lap 14. 8 seconds clear of Russ Addy, Johannes Jorgensen in 3rd, his teammate Barry Hills in 4th. Franz Josef Sturm, some late moves to 5th, ahead of Jan-Erik Skrefsrud and Peter Holstrom. Douglas Beasley in 8th. Ulf Olsen, last car on the lead lap there in 9th. Garris a lap down. His teammate Todd Scholl a retirement. Roberto Catalano, the champion, has gone to celebrate early after crashing out lap 1. Good race though, all things considered, and well deserved for Paul Stump. We'll get to chatting with who we can.
Should we go the other way, third to first this time round, because we haven't got the race winner Paul Stump there just yet. Go for Johannes Jorgensen first of all, who finished in 3rd. Johannes, welcome in. Good to have you with us, and congratulations on finishing 3rd place in race 2 here tonight. Just tell us about those final few laps with your teammate. Did you agree with Barry that you were going to finish that way round as teammates in that second race?
Yeah, thank you. It was a great race, and Barry had a good podium finish in the first race, so we made a deal that he wouldn't race me, so he backed off, and Russ was a bit too fast for me today, but finally very happy to finish the season with a 3rd.
And a good result as well compared to race 1. We didn't get to chat to you after the first race, but tell us about your first race and what happened there, and what changed for you to get such a great result in the second one.
Well, I had a pretty good pace, but in the first race I was a little bit cautious in the first corner, and then got a little bit hit from behind and blocked the road, so I had to let everyone pass. And then finally made mistakes, and at the end I was DQ'd.
What was the reason for the DQ, by the way? Was it incident limit?
Yeah, I had 3 contacts with and some off track, so finally 17 off track, so was a DQ.
Okay, we excuse me, we couldn't quite understand at the time, but yeah, well, glad that you had a much better second race and ended the season on a high. Anyway, Gerhardus, thanks for chatting to us, and congrats on the podium in race 2 tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much, and hope to speak to you next year season.
Absolutely. Gerhardus Jorissen's third place in race 2 tonight.
And he always goes better when we're covering the races. Russ Addy joins us from second place.
I say cover every race. Come on, guys.
You could make that happen if you pulled your credit card out. Probably. I think that's how RaceSpotTV works.
I think that is how it works.
We'd have to rename it to RaceSpotTV.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what happened in that one for you? You qualified one spot better, but you finished one spot further back.
The start, when those two guys ran together, I kind of panicked and jammed on my brakes and spun, so that set me back a bit. I had to work to get into second. I thought for sure they were going to come across and hit me.
And when you're closing in on two teammates, there's a track where, some games can be played with the slipstream, etc. But by all accounts, Barry Hills and Gerhardus Jorissen treated you pretty fair, and while it took a little bit of work, you did eventually get by them to second place.
Oh yeah, it was a good battle. Going back and forth with Barry was fun. You just have to give and take a little, and that makes everybody better.
Different track temp. Did you feel that?
It felt better than the last race. I don't know if it was lower or not. But yeah, it felt a little bit better. Toward the end of the last race, it was getting very slippery.
We were about 70 Fahrenheit instead of 120 track temperature.
That'll make a difference for sure.
Yeah, you'd sure think so. Well, with the end of the season, you've been part of the Super Formula Light 60-plus racing adventures for a fair time. What's the feeling that you take away?
Well, we need more racers, more good quality racers. I think overall the guys have been great, fair. Of course, they race hard. And it's just so much fun to race against the same guys. You get to know them. You get to know who you can race close to, other ones you got to kind of avoid. But overall, everybody's pretty good.
And if you were putting up a billboard that said join 60 plus racing adventures, what would be on it?
Well, I think it's mature racers that in general aren't doing foolish things. Although like today, you run together every now and then with people, and sometimes that's what happens in close racing. But overall, it's just a great group of guys. In fact, I'm going on vacation next week, and I'm going to go out to Reno and visit one of the fellas that I've never met before.
Exciting times. Enjoy yourself, and we'll see you for more 60-plus racing adventures in the future, no doubt, Ross.
Yeah, hope to see you guys soon, and of course, thanks to me. See you guys.
And that's a season done and dusted, and you called it. Very sad that we won't get to chat with our new champion, Roberto Catalano. Did all the work that he needed to do across all of those other race wins, and when it came to Monza, maybe a bit too much pressure from the home crowd.
Unfortunate, really, because clearly had the speed, but, unfortunately, the common denominator was that Catalano did get caught up in a couple of incidents. We saw contact with Paul Stump at least a couple of occasions in race number 1 as well. And, unfortunately, we do have to pin the blame on that lap 1 crash for race 2 as well on him when he came together with Todd Scholes. So yeah, sad way for the champion to go out, but it's still Catalano's season nevertheless. He drove very, very well over the course of the season, just not maybe the day on home soil that he would have wanted to finish the season. But for us, great racing here at Monza. We didn't expect anything different particularly, so a thoroughly enjoyable final round to come back for here tonight.
Yep, exactly. Russ Addy wins race 1. Paul Stump wins race 2 from Monza. The final round of 60 Plus Racing Adventures Super Formula Lights. Roberto Catalano confirmed the champion. Teams Championship going to Vegas Roots, Greg Garrison, Todd Scholl. And with his win in the final race, it looks like Paul Stump takes the Super 70s Championship. If you're looking for a great league for drivers 60 years of age or over, 60 Plus Racing Adventures can be found on Discord, online, and on the iRacing forum. I've been David Haynes with Ewan O'Leary, Hugo Lewis in production. We'll see you again soon.